Hi everyone, welcome to another Mr. Law video. This is an introduction to arrays. Today we are going to talk about what arrays are, how to create them, and how to manipulate them. Hopefully it doesn't take longer than 15 minutes, but we do have 3 examples to go over today. So what we have in front of us right now is what I usually think of an array visually when I envision it in my head. Um, First of all, a couple of things about arrays that are different from an array list. Arrays are fixed in size, meaning when you create an array of size 5, at that point, that array will always be of size 5, no more, no less. Um, so today, the first example we're going to look at is down here. Should zoom in a little bit here, is down here. But before we do that, let's just talk about conceptually um, what an array is and how it works. All right, so be a little patient with me. I am trying out my brand new Wacom Intuos tablet here. So we'll see how this works out for us. So here we have our array. It's a little big, so I don't think I'm going to use the whole thing. But as with most data structures, the first slot or the first space or the first storage location is normally index 0. Let me put a slash through there, index 0. And then we have index 1, index 2, index 3, index 4, 5, and so on. I'm going to actually come back in here and erase index 5 because in the examples we have below, there is no index 5. All right, so we have, and you know what? It's probably going to be a little less confusing if I come in and erase all of this. So spent all of that time drawing lines and discovered, oops, don't really need them. And that's okay. Bad preparation. All right. So, sorry. So here we have our array of size 5. Um, there are 5 indexes, begins at 0, goes to 4. Another thing about an array that is different from an array list is that we do not actually call it a size. It's not size 5, but instead with arrays we call it length. And it's going to get even more confusing in a moment. And when we get to the code, you're going to see how much more confusing it actually is. It's, well, you'll see. So with our 5 spaces here, if I wanted to, I can fill them with values, and let's fill them with uh, some values here. Let's say I'm filling my array with values. And what would happen with an array, let's say I filled my array with values and then I've decided to then go in and remove this value. With an array list, what would happen is that the entire structure would collapse. Index 2 would not be left blank. But with an array, when you remove a value, that structure is fixed. It does not collapse. So if I did try to remove a value here, or if I replaced it with another value, this space here does not go away. So that's something to keep in mind when we're dealing with an array. It's a fixed structure. And that's really it for differences between an array and array list. So let's come down here and take a look at some of our code. And I'm going to come in here and erase these values so we can use this drawing again in a moment. Let's see here. So we have public static void main. So this example is actually in BlueJ. So here, pull BlueJ over. It's in BlueJ. These 3 examples are in your Google Drive right now, and they all run, compile and run. They're all here. So you can. I'm just going to scroll through them really quick. With this last one that says modify this example, it has a little exercise in there for you to try to see if you understand arrays. It's not too hard. It should take about 15, 20 minutes. It's up to you guys if you want to work on it. So in this example, a couple of lines to point out to you that is important because we are just starting with arrays. We have, uh, this is the line that creates our array, right? So there we go. And sorry, that's not a straight line. On the left side of our assignment operator here, of course, on the left side, we have, as always, our, oops, let me fix that. As always, we have our, here we go, our variable. Notice that our variable is a little different. Our variable here is a little different. There is the square bracket sign, right? So we've been seeing that square bracket sign for a long time, right? This little square bracket sign. So I'm still trying to get used to this tablet, right? So we've been seeing the square bracket sign since almost day one, right? We saw it here. And now we get to finally learn what that bracket means. And wow, this tablet is really, sorry about that, everyone. So we have our square bracket, and what that bracket indicates is that we are creating an array. So when we're on the left side of the assignment operator, yikes, this is so bad, I'm so sorry. Sorry, they're still trying to get used to this pen and the tablet. There we go. So we have our assignment operator. On the left side, we have numbers, and then int, and then our square bracket. And what we're doing is we're creating an array called numbers. It is not just a normal variable, it is an array variable. And on the right side, we have our new operator, right? And if you guys remember from the past, whenever we see a new operator, we use it to create a new object. So that's what that's for. So arrays are objects. Now the big difference here is that we do not have a class, because an array, when we're creating an array, we do not need to indicate a class. Instead, what we want to indicate is we want to indicate what kind of array it is. Right? Do we want to int, a double, a rectangle array? Do we want an array of strings? What do we want to create? So unlike an array list, with arrays, we are able to create a data structure. Sorry, we can create an array of primitive values and an array of objects. With an array list, you can only create an array list of objects. So after we've indicated int, again, notice the square brackets again, but this time there's something in between it. And what we put in between it is how many values we want to store. Do we want to store 5 values? Do we want to store 10 values? Do we want to store 100 values? And it gets pretty big. For all intents and purposes in our class, we're never going to hit the maximum limit of what array can hold. And to be honest, I cannot remember what that value is right now, so I'm not going to mention it. If somebody wants to jump on Stack Overflow or something and look it up and let the rest of the class know, feel free to do so. So once we have our array created, I then proceed to fill my array below. We have numbers 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. As some of you can probably already guess, that value there, and let me see if I can actually circle it. That value there is the index, right? So what's happening on that line is that we're telling it, hey, we want to assign the value 1 to index 0 in the numbers array. And you can see that I fill the whole array. I don't do it with a loop, right? This is supposed to be the first example, so I didn't use a loop to fill it. Instead, I just filled it manually. However, I do use a loop to print all the values to the terminal window. And as you can see, I used a enhanced for loop here. And I'm very quickly actually going to write it out for you as a regular for loop, because I forgot to do that, and I should have done that. That's my fault. So let's, oh, that's terrible. Sorry. Let's see how well this tablet actually works here. Right. So we want for with a regular for loop. We were going to want to also, of course, indicate where we begin. We want to indicate where we end. And where we want to end is the last index in numbers. Unlike an array list, we do not say size, so I'm not going to type in size there, so let me erase that, right? Instead, what we want to say, and there's a period here, let me make that period a little better. Yikes. what we want to do is say length. Now the funky part is there is no parentheses. There's my semicolon, there's my plus plus, and then there's my open brace, and there is my close brace. So, quick thing to point out, no parentheses here. Yep, horrible green. Since there are no parentheses there, I want you to think about what maybe we'll go over in class, but I'm sure you guys can figure it out on your own. Since there are no parentheses there, we know it's not a method. So if it's not a method, what is it, right? What are your options? I want you guys to think about it a little bit, and then we'll talk about it in class if we need to. So there's my for loop, my regular for loop. So to do the same thing that was in our enhanced for loop, I'm going to create a variable to hold our value here. I'm going to call it n is numbers. Wow. Numbers I. As you guys can tell, I'm sure some of you are probably laughing at home or at least grinning, thinking what a dumbass I am. This is I literally unpacked this tablet 15 minutes ago. And I'm trying, my hand is actually cramping up because I'm holding it so hard, holding the pen so hard. So we're going to have to work on this. All right, let me scroll down a little bit here. So to achieve the same thing that our for loop on the left does in a regular for loop, that's what it might look like. And excuse the poor handwriting. All right, so let's go on to our next example here. And put some space here. Here in our next example, we have a for loop, or we have an array. It's a little bit more complicated. The array here that's being created, let me see, right? So it's being created there. That's no different from the previous example. We can't really make that part more complicated. But what I did do is show you an example where I used scanner to fill my array. So we have a regular for loop that goes from 0, let me highlight it here, 0 to max, which is the value that we indicated here. And so this loop is going to iterate 5 times. I'm going to ask for 5 values. I'm going to assign 5 values to our numbers array at the proper index, right? So that's an example of a regular for loop being used again. I had to use a regular for loop here because I am modifying my array, so that was necessary. And then again, I show you an enhanced for loop down here to move through and iterate through the array. Go ahead and run that right now. Take a look to see what it does. Not a whole lot here to explain, so I'm going to skip down to the last example. So the last example actually has 2 methods. The first method is the main method, which I've already completed. And the second method I left incomplete for you. So let's take a look at the main method. So here in the main method, I create an array again. Let me change colors again. I created an array, and you can see that it's not just 5 indexes. There's 100 indexes this time. And this array does have 100 indexes. I mean, it's created, all 100 exist. They are all initialized with a value of some kind. I'll let you guys, look that up, or when you read through the textbooks, it'll tell you what's being initialized with. You can probably take a pretty good guess as to what it's being initialized with. But all 100 indexes are there. If after this line I wanted to say system.out.println line 99, I can. You would not get an error. It would print that value to the terminal window. So in the next couple of lines here, in the next section here, where I create scanner and I ask for how many values they would like to enter, I store that value in quantity of values. And what we're doing here is, this is an example of an incomplete array. So I've created an array of 100, but the user might say, you know what, I only want to enter in 10 values. So if they only want to enter in 10 values, 0 through 9, indexes 0 to 9 will be filled, but indexes 10 to 99 wouldn't be filled. So like on the right side here, if I draw it out very quickly, if I can. Right, so this is my array, right? And if we pretend that this is 0 and dot, 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 and this is index, this is 0, and this is index 9. If the user says, hey, I want to enter in 10 numbers, they might enter a number here, enter in a whole bunch of numbers here, enter a number here, but all of these arrays that do exist, right, that's index 99 at the end, they would not be filled. Instead, they would be filled with some kind of value that was not part of their original data set. And this happens a lot, actually. When we're dealing with fixed structures, um, we may not use every single index that we create. So when that happens, we have to keep track of, if you look over here, we have to keep track of how many we've used so far. So my loop doesn't go to numbers.length, it doesn't go to max, instead it goes to quantity of values. All right, so after we've done that, after we filled the portion of the array that we want, if I scroll down here, in this current print array method, there's two parameters. One parameter takes the array itself so that we know what we're printing, and the other parameter takes the quantity of values. This for loop right now is only there as a placeholder. I want you to replace it so that print array will print to the terminal window the number of values the user has entered in so far. It should be highly doable. It shouldn't take too long. It's just a for loop, and you're just sending a value to the terminal window. I just want to make sure everyone is capable of at least doing that. When we come in on Monday, we are going to have a couple of worksheets in class, and then we're going to move on from there. Okay. Thank you, everyone.